Good morning. Today in Bonn, there's a meeting of the called by the United Nations, and our Prime Minister is attending that. As a matter of fact, the Titanic statements made by the Prime Minister should have hit him with an iceberg. We are aware that the politicians and the lawyers often lie and lie very convincingly. But when the lie betrays the integrity and spoils the name of the country, when the lie is so potent that the people simply laugh it away, then that leads to some serious thinking. Let's see how Prime Minister Trudeau is doing. We have seen that the Prime Minister is caving in to the United Nations with a view to increase a halo around his fair name, to be deemed as a global leader, even at the cost of telling lies, making misstatements, and also hampering the economy of the country. The United Nations never-ending carbon-spewing climate change show gets underway today in Bonn. And the Canadians will be told, all of us will be told two big lies. Both are actually political lies and are meant to mislead people. The first is that the Paris Climate Accord signed 2 years ago still has a chance to lower greenhouse gases globally. And it's described as a safe level needed to avert global warming catastrophe by 2100. Which is a clear lie because they are not being reduced. At least not being reduced to that level talked about. The second lie is that the Prime Minister Trudeau still has a chance to meet the emission levels he agreed to when he signed the Paris Accord in 2015. In reality, now this is a fact check, Canada is so far behind Trudeau's 22 and 2030 emission pledges that the only way to do it will be if Trudeau uses billions of taxpayer dollars to buy carbon offsets in international markets. And that is also riddled by fraud. So he buys a carbon offsets from China, from India, from Africa, all over, and then says, okay, here my carbon emission is low. And that is fraudulent. That is cheating. Indeed, irony of the irony is that the United States has done a better job of lowering emissions than Canada, though they had never signed Kyoto Accord earlier and walked out of the Paris Accord. These are the two accords. The Kyoto Protocol was precursor to Paris Agreement, and it expired in 2012. Stephen Harper, as a Prime Minister, was very wise to withdraw from Kyoto in 2011. He knew and he realized that the target set in the Kyoto Protocol and then later on in the Paris Accord agreed to by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau are not achievable. So he withdrew. Now coming to the comparison between US and Canada, US had dropped 11.5% below 2005 level in the last 10 years. So in one decade, they reduced their emission levels by 11.5%. And in 1 year, 2014-2015, they dropped by 2.3% in 1 year. So in 1 year, in 1 decade, they dropped by 11.5%. And then in 1 year, after that decade, they dropped by 2.3%. Now what has Canada done? Canadians' emission levels dropped 2.2% below 2005 level in that identical decade. So 11.5 by US, 2.2 by Canada. Next, 2014 and 2015, US dropped emissions by 2.3, Canada dropped by 0.69%. And the major reason is that the US emission levels dropped despite not having joined the Kyoto Protocol, despite having withdrawn from Paris Accord. It is pure economics. And the US has been using economics, the theory put in practice, and there's nothing to do with United Nations, which is, as I said, a constant anti-carbon spewing organ, having been fed with platitudes which it keeps on repeating to the degree of creating nausea. It achieved these levels, USA, by use of fracking technology, which Canadian provinces, especially Quebec, have merrily banned. And that, what does that show? That displays our country's alarming propensity for cutting its own economic throat. So the political expediency in banning fracking technology to get oil, very clear, the banning was political reasons, and that is responsible. On the other hand, USA outperforms Canada. And then there's no guarantee that countries will deliver even to the cuts they agreed to. So Canada has clearly joining that group, which will not honor its signatures. Now what is happening is amazing. USA has warned 196 countries which signed the Paris Accord that so far only 1/3 of the emission cuts required have been met. But it was fraught with the same movement since it was unveiled. So anger and angst by UN is unjustified. But it definitely displays that the present government has been misleading itself, the United Nations, and the people of the country. Now, secondly, the Paris Accord has no binding mechanism to force Canada and other defaulting countries to live up to their pledges. Given that accord is a fraud, what became important is the high-flying record of UN diplomacy is in not achieving emission reductions, but in going to the United Nations. And now the point is, why would Trudeau and the Canada not be criticized in Bonn? Simple. It is accepting all the stupid demands, all the demands which are a burden to the economy of United Nations. Day before yesterday, UN spokesman Mr. Gardy said that Canada is a very wise country to have accepted 35,000 Syrian refugees. And now it should accept 1 million more. Mr. Prime Minister agreed partly and has agreed in principle to have 40,000 more Syrian refugees. So 35 plus 40. These are the UNHCR sponsored refugees, the private sponsored refugees are different. That is one reason that it immediately accepts whatever UN demands. Second, Canada, according to the Paris Accord, has committed to it, and they think, the UN think is a political victory because Stephen Harper had pulled out of Kyoto. Do you know that the Canadian delegation sent to Paris was double the size of American, 3 times that of UK, because of one factor: Canada's large-heartedness, generous, at the cost of the taxpayer. Mr. Trudeau had contributed billions of taxpayer dollars to UN Green Climate Fund, above the commitment of Harper, which by 2020 is supposed to transfer 100 billion every year from developed countries to the developing ones. So, in case, and there's every likelihood that will continue, UNO asked Canada to adhere to its commitment and contribute 100 billion every year to be given to those countries who are polluting countries. Why should then United Nations kill the golden goose, which is laying the golden eggs? Canada is ready to be economically raped by UNO and is happy to be raped. And UNO, largely dependent on USA. The USA is withdrawing slowly. They have refused to honor some of their commitments, and Canada is doing that. You know, UNO's fat cat, high-flying diplomats are the real reason for Canada's being acceptance, not the actual emission reductions. I know in the Bonn meeting today, Trump will be vilified, criticized, condemned for being wise enough to withdraw from Kyoto Accord, which has never been a success. Now, there has been one benefit of Paris Accord, definitely. It has given political leaders like Trudeau, Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne, Alberta Premier Rachel Notley, a perfect excuse to extract billions of dollars annually from the pockets of the honest, hardworking taxpayers. And the excuse is granted to them since we signed the Paris Accord, that these taxes are to fight global warming climate. It's regardless whether they are significant or in any way remarkable emission cuts been achieved or not, whether we are living up to our promises or not, that's not material, but it's a perfect excuse to lay more taxes and get money. As a matter of fact, Green Party, and I'm not a very great admirer of Green Party, but Green Party of Canada agrees that through a neutral carbon pricing system called carbon fee and dividend, government could have returned every dollar to the pocket of the Canadians. But it has not done so. Why should it? It's getting money which it gives to terrorists, refugees, and to United Nations for being spent on jamborees and high luxurious life of UN officials. The carbon fee and dividend is designed to lower emissions not fatten government coffers. And naturally, Trudeau and his party is not interested in that. Green Party's this action, this proposal is of a great value. And any Prime Minister, whether it is Conservative Prime Minister or Liberal Prime Minister, should have been prudent enough to accept that proposal. But that didn't meet there either the political ends or the ends of financial exploitation of the taxpayer. So there you are. And now what we are left with is more taxes, carbon taxes, and more taxes because of more refugees. Now, friends, choice is yours. Thinking is yours. Decide for yourself what action you want to take. Can you take any action? Or can you at least believe the government which is telling lies and lies and lies? Can you believe any government which believes in hiding facts and coming up, trotting up imaginary things? Yesterday we talked of the Paradise Papers, how Canadian Prime Minister's main fundraiser and the 3 Prime Ministers, former Prime Ministers, are involved in that. How the head of the country, Queen Elizabeth, is involved in that. But does it matter? Does it in any way affect the liability and the ability of the government to impose more taxes and extract more money for causes not relevant and for reasons and the results which cannot be and shall never be achieved? This is a matter of concern. Thank you.